Hi, I'm Marlin Simon. I was going to talk about my turtle experience, which I had a fair amount of it. Actually, I went back to college after being out for 5 years. I quit after 3.5 years of college, got married, and had a son, started a couple of businesses, and then I went back to East Tennessee State University and got my degree in biology. And just before I graduated, an old friend of mine that I did underwater photography with wrote me a note and said, "What are you going to do after you get out?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, I'm doing a introduction work on sea turtles, and we're going to see if we can grow green sea turtles." And we said, "Okay, yeah." And he said, "Would you like to come to work with me half-time?" Sure, why not? I didn't have anything else planned on doing, so I came back down here to the Keys, and for a year I worked half-time raising baby green sea turtles that we'd gotten from Costa Rica. It was an interesting project because that particular winter of 1967 was very cold, and we got no growth for 3 months because of that. But there was a man walked down the seawall and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" And Dr. Schroeder said, "Well, we're testing out to see whether we can grow green sea turtles," and that. One thing led to another, and he formed a group of 6 men, all millionaires, and they all threw in $1 million apiece. And we went to Grand Cayman. I was the first employee of the turtle farm, and we started a turtle farm in Grand Cayman. Now, that's sort of in a nutshell. There was a lot that went on in the interim there. We ended up flying the turtles we had here down to Grand Cayman, and we started building pens down there. We got a piece of property literally a half a mile back through a mangrove swamp, and I had to take chainsaws and cut a trail through the mangrove swamp, and we built a road to get back there. And then I started building docks. I was building 150 foot of dock a day with 2 men, and we started building the big 150 foot square with all the runners in between, all the different docks. So we went through this so we could put in square 8 by 8 pens with a mesh bottom in them to be able to put the baby turtles in. And while we're doing that, I flew to Costa Rica on the first egg collection trip, and we had permission to get 15,000 eggs to take back to Grand Cayman to hatch out and begin raising. Well, long story short, the whole overview of the thing is that we ended up writing the papers and learning what we're doing because nobody had ever raised green sea turtles in captivity before. And there's a whole book on it. In fact, I can show you that book. But they wrote a book on us later on. And in the interim, we had 8 very intensive years of putting all this together before the Endangered Species Act of 1975 shut down the importation of turtle products in the United States. But during those 8 years, I ended up in the jungles. I ended up at sea adrift for 3 days in a sinking ship, and we literally bailed 30 minutes out of every hour to keep that thing afloat until the only aircraft in all Suriname actually flew out looking for us. And then they sent out a dugout canoe and took us in. But that's a whole other story there. Among the many other stories there, I ended up upside down in an airplane in the jungle in Tortuguero, Costa Rica. The pilots down in Costa Rica were unbelievably terrible. And twice I took over. I just took over the airplane because I always flew in the right seat to make sure that I could survive. And we just had a lot of interesting experiences. between boats and the air and the animals. We cut trails through jungles. I had down in Suriname, had interesting experiences down there because I always hired the natives, the Amerindians, and an Amerindian full-size man would be up to about my shoulder, and they were powerful guys. They worked hard and all that, but we were cutting through the jungle down there to make a path because there was a 9-foot tide, and in that area at night we couldn't get through with our motorcycles to be able to transport the eggs, so I cut this trail through probably about a mile through the jungle. And doing that, I remember in one time we saw over 3 tarantulas. We used to put them on the top of a peanut can, the real big peanut can, and we put the tarantulas on and take pictures of it because they were generally all the time coming down there. But anyway, we cutting through the jungle, and not only did I have the Amerindians working with me, I worked with the Dutch Army, and we were staying at a Dutch Army camp, which was only about a 16 by 16 metal framed corrugated iron type of thing. And that was another experience because we had about 10 guys there and living in very primitive conditions. And the snakes down there were amazing. I had some of my men staying in a wooden house, and they killed 5 poisonous snakes crawling up on the house during the 2-week period that we were down there. We were going to different places with the turtles. I'm trying to do an overview on the whole thing because it was experience in Guyana, in Costa Rica, in Suriname, and Ascension Island in the South Atlantic. And every one of them was unique in its own way, and experiences in each one of them were tremendous. Where do I go from all this? It was a very exciting 8 years that I worked with the turtles, and there were so many experiences. In 1 year alone, I was in 3 airplane accidents, and it was life was sort of always, exciting, but I never thought of it that way. It was just where I was and what I was doing. And later on, as I started telling stories about what we did and where we were, people have been saying, you need to write a book, you need to write this all down. And thanks to Jeff Dupree, who has just stimulated me into trying to start all this, we'll see where we'll go with it. But
how about the success of the turtle farm?
Success of the turtle farm. We had 28 turtle farms planned around the world in 1975. And the importation of the turtle products being stopped in the United States shut down the worldwide production of turtles. And right now, we would have had turtle on the menu everywhere in the world at probably half the price of chickens. And chickens, of course, right now are probably about the least expensive of everything. We had the largest chicken farmer in England, was one of the millionaires that put in his money. Along with that, we had the second largest chicken farmer in England that was invested in the corporation. And what they saw was that the turtle was basically a featherless chicken. And we have all the turtle grass all over the world grows, and the green sea turtle is a carnivore to begin with as a baby, but becomes an omnivore and then goes to becoming a herbivore. And in eating the turtle grass, they grow like crazy, and we could mow it. We made an underwater lawnmower, started mowing the turtle grass, and we were feeding tons of turtle grass to the turtles every day. And in doing that, we learned so much because we found out that turtle grass grows faster than terrestrial grasses, and we got more volume out of it, so therefore we could feed more turtles. And turtles populate all the subtropical areas between say latitude 25 north to 25 south. So you're going to find all your sea turtles in that. And you got all the grasses in that area also. So we could go all over the world. We had, like I said, 28 different farms planned. And then the conservation people came in and just refused to believe what we were doing. I had written the law for California, and we had one of their senators or representatives down on the island, and he took it back to California. They had it passed that we could bring in we could import farmed raised animals, and that was where we were at, because we could tell the difference between the type of meat. We could test the meat and know whether it was meat from a farmed raised animal or from the wild. And we just wanted to bring in farmed raised animals, but they shut down the importation because they wouldn't believe that we'd raised the second generation in captivity, which was at that time the standard for what you had for a domesticated animal. It would be a major deal all over the world had we continued with it and been able to continue with it. And do I have something against some of the tree huggers? Yeah, I guess I do. I had so many different situations with that. I lobbied in Washington for a week with the head of the World Wildlife Fund, with the head of the Sierra Club, the head of Brooklyn Zoological, the Audubon Society, all the big ones. Marlin Perkins at that time was there also. And I told them all, I said, look, here's all my information. I had books and books and books of what we had done, how we had done it, and giving them the information that we had a farmed raised animal. And in one accord, they said, we don't believe you. And I went, this is absurd. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pay for all of you to come to the island. I'll fly you down there. I'll put you up in the nicest hotels. We'll feed you and take care of you. And I'll show you all that we've done and how we've raised these animals in captivity and how we have second generation. And the only lady that agreed that she thought it was a good idea was the head of the Audubon Society at that time, 1975. Otherwise, they had their minds made up that we were going to ruin the genetic population and so on. So it was a very interesting project, but God obviously had different plans for my life, and we came back, and the world radically changed for me. But